like we were talking about this a few minutes ago. Terence Davis, sensational. In this win streak, there's a game he didn't play.
Right.
Like that's one of the most amazing things about that he had that game. He had that 31-point outing that he had against Brooklyn, that massive blowout on national television. Yeah, he didn't play 2 games before. In what was one of their biggest wins of the season at the time against Cleveland.
Yep. That's just I give more credit to, if anything, give credit to TD for that.
I give credit. Yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely a credit to Terence Davis. I think it's a credit to everyone on this roster, because they know, Mike, it might not be my night. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that KZ Okpala's number was going to get called if it wasn't a 30-point blowout. I know at the end of the first quarter, he put him in for like 7 seconds. Yeah. But then, the game opened up and he wound up playing, quite a bit there. But that's a tribute to this team, this version of this team, who seems to be as connected as any team, certainly in my time of covering them.
Well, let me ask you this too. What did it mean to you that Fox and Sabonis combined had the same amount of points as TD? And I'm not saying that in a
Terence Davis is the greatest king ever.
Well, that too.
That's how
that's a fair takeaway. I was thinking more along the lines of the Kings beat an NBA team by 32 points. They put up 153 points in a game, and they did so with De'Aaron Fox scoring 14 and Sabonis scoring 17. And there are going to be some people that only will pay attention to box scores that say, wow, the Kings went on their big run in the second quarter when Fox was out of the game. But to me, like, I'm wondering how enjoyable this must be for Fox, to where a run like, to this point in his career, a run like that in the second quarter doesn't happen if Fox is not the catalyst, right? Absolutely. Now he's sitting on the bench. He's watching TD come in, who, to your point, didn't play 2 games ago. He's coming in, getting chewed out by Mike Brown immediately and responding instead of folding in on himself like a lot of players did when Luke Walton would get upset sometimes if he maybe is capable of getting upset.
That's a funny point that I don't know that we've pointed out before. We always point to Mike's timeout 15 seconds in calling in getting at Terence Davis. Terence didn't play the first quarter. That means Terence Davis had played exactly 15 seconds of basketball before getting cussed out by Mike Brown.
And he responded. That's the big thing, though.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. There are so many players that was shut down with that, and that's what I think speaks to the respect that Mike Brown has is, hey, he can pull you aside in front of a bench and 17,000 people in an arena. They can't hear it, but they can see the body language. Mm-hmm. You can get cussed out, and then you go out there and make huge defensive plays and then drop 31. Yeah. Like, that's a response. That's a response that, like, it's something that shouldn't be as taboo as it is here in Sacramento. Like, and as a former player, like, responding to your coach, some different coaches respond different ways. And we've heard so much, or rather players respond different ways. We've heard so much about how well De'Aaron is responding just to being coached this year. Like, he's being pulled aside and said, this was great. You could do this better. And De'Aaron's responding to that. Like, that to me is, if you're talking about changing a culture, changing an environment, that's where I think the changes really started with this group is, I can chew you out. I have your back. And then you go out and respond for me immediately. Yeah. And I'll do it in the middle of a game. I'll do it 15 seconds into a quarter. Like that. Not too many coaches, I don't think, could do that in the league and still have their locker room intact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's a credit to those players as well. Because from everything that we've heard, Fox, Terence Davis, a number of those guys, they asked for something like that. They asked for, a coach to come in there and hold them accountable and things of that nature. And when it actually happens, they're not going back on that. They're like, okay, yeah, I was wrong. I got to be better. I'm not going to take it personal. I'm not going to take it in any type of way that's going to affect the way that I perform. I'm going to go out there, listen to what's being said, and try to execute it and be better. Yeah. So, credit to them.
This good vibes got to keep going, man.
Yep.
I for the purpose of tonight's game, we're going to point this out, not to shade the opponent. Spurs stink defensively. They're the worst team in the league defensively, which is an absolute wild sentence to utter. But statistically, the San Antonio Spurs are the worst team in the NBA on the defensive end. There's a number of metrics that they're really, really bad at that seem to favor the Sacramento Kings in this game. They've lost 7 of their last 8, and it's just, all right, we believe this team is different. This is a team that's going in the wrong direction. That's not very good. That might be without their best scorer tonight. And how are you going to respond? You outlined earlier. We've seen this before. You go out, you get a big win, maybe an unexpected win. This one of their biggest wins in recent memory, given the stage that they were on. How are you going to respond to that? And Kenny pointed out earlier, we're talking from our trauma, not theirs.
Yeah.
This isn't stuff that they've dealt with. This is stuff we as fans have dealt with. And from a player's perspective, from a team perspective, they're unrecognizable when as compared to teams that we've seen in the past.
Absolutely.
It's just the same uniform. That's it.
I think what's also kind of been exciting over this recent stretch of success is the Kings haven't come out in the first quarter and necessarily shot lights out. Now, as a whole, as a team, they ended up having a really good shooting night against Brooklyn. But if you remember the start of that game, the Kings created some good separation against Brooklyn, but they were doing so while shooting in the 40s, pretty much from the field. And that elevated into the high 40s and 50s pretty much into the second quarter. But what I'm interested in seeing is, do the Sacramento Kings come out against the San Antonio Spurs? If the shot's not falling early on, do they continue to chuck, or do they go to one of the pillars of Mike Brown's offense, which is, okay, try and get the ball inside a little bit? Like, I think Domantas Sabonis has figured out that he can pretty much eat against anybody that's not named Steven Adams. Like, and that's the way he's been playing. He actually established the Kings offense in the first quarter, I thought, against Brooklyn. He had 4 quick points, was dominant in the paint. It's like, okay, there's nothing Brooklyn can do against this guy. And after I said something about that, I didn't really notice Sabonis much in the game from that point on, because he was still having his way inside, but the Kings were hitting everything on the outside too, so it didn't matter at that point. The floodgates were open. But does Sacramento come out against the San Antonio Spurs team that is bad defensively and think that they can just shoot like it's an open gym? Or do they continue with if the Kings continue with their principles of getting Fox in the paint, getting Sabonis the ball in the paint, having Harrison attack and kick out, if they're getting paint touches, I don't think a win should be a problem. But if they try and just get out there and say, okay, we can just kind of get our layup lines in or get our shots up, maybe the Spurs are bad enough to allow you just to have your layup lines. Yeah. But I think my whole point is, regardless of opponent, does Sacramento continue to play their game? Because they forced Brooklyn to play their game completely on Thursday, and it resulted in a 32-point win. Yeah. I think they're capable of making anybody play to them and not trying to match up with anybody. That's why I like so much what I like so much about Brown's consistent rotations is he's doing the same thing with his players regardless of who his opponent is. Right. So instead of, okay, you're going to get more minutes tonight because you're facing this center or you're facing this wing. I get that you're trying to game plan, but you're adjusting or upsetting what you do that you've had success with to handle another team. Yeah. I like, especially in your own building, I like you making another team handle you, especially when it's a team like San Antonio that's struggling as much as they are.
I look at this San Antonio team in this matchup with the way this Kings team is playing, and my message to them would be just eat your vegetables early. Take care of business early. Because if you do that, you'll be able to eat your dessert.
Get that soft serve that they got at the Golden One Center in the fourth quarter.
Do your job early.
I want that soft serve so bad.
James Ham gives his credit card up, and you never know who's going to get it. I'm just saying. James gets surprised too, because he'll give his credit card up and suddenly there's like 5 of them coming back.
No, hey, that's what happens.
But you like 6 people can share one of those things.
Not with me. Not with me. Well, 1, I can't eat any of it. But 2, every time I see it, it's like, oh my God, that looks like the most incredible ice. Because I used to love soft serve. It looks like the most incredible thing ever.
But yeah, handle your business early.
Yeah.
And you'll have your soft serve later. You know what I mean? That's what it is. So don't come out. It's much like the Lakers game. And they didn't do this, is they kind of let the Lakers feel good about themselves, shoot the ball really well, and they end up being in a bit of a dogfight at the end of the night. They were able to pull it out, so that was good. But if they weren't down 13 early, or they were able to get stops and play kind of like they did in that third quarter, in the first 2 quarters, maybe you would have had a much smoother night. That's what this game is going to be about for me. Take care of business early, and you should have a smooth night tonight.
And to me, that's a sign of discipline. That's a sign of discipline that good teams have. Now, I'm not saying the Golden State Warriors never fell behind at any point, and the Golden State Warriors were masters of closing gaps. And that's another note that I want to get to. But to me, it's a sign of discipline that no matter who you're facing, up, down, level of competition, whatever, you still play the way that you're supposed to play, and you know that you can play. But I mentioned the gap closing. Like, this is something that I think Mike Brown has taken really well from the Golden State Warriors that I haven't heard too many people talk about. The Kings have made 13-point deficits not look insurmountable.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the Kings go down 13 points last season. I'm like, forget it, because it's going to be 20 before it gets to 10.
Mhm.
Like this year, it's like, okay, the Kings have gone down 13. I'm not happy to be in that position. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm okay with it, but the Golden State Warriors could come back from 13 down in a matter of possessions. Kings aren't that good yet, but the
Yeah.
Kings could come back from 13 down in half a quarter.
Mhm.
And we've seen it multiple times this season. That's exciting to me, to where you don't ever want to get into those holes. But when you do have those slumps, you have a team that at least believes enough that they can and is capable of climbing out of it without wasting a boatload of time. Like that's a big difference. That's a big Warriors trait that I think Mike has brought to Sacramento.
And they're really comfortable with each other. And when you go back and talk about those first 4 games of the season, I wonder how much of it was figuring each other out on the floor, off the floor, Mike, what he's doing with the rotations, all that different stuff. It was all so new, despite having preseason and training camp, and despite the fact that a lot of guys were here for a really long time in live settings. This was all brand new. And as the games have gone by, again, 0 for 4, I thought they played well in most of those games. I thought they played well in all of those games. But moving forward, it was just like that comfort level increased to where you see deficits get erased. You see them go on runs. You see, them move up the leaderboard, if you will, in terms of assists per game, team assists per game.
Yeah. And I think too, Mike was trying to teach. And at some point, sometimes lessons take.
Which I'm not confident was, and I don't think that was done last year. I don't think teaching was done last year.
Right. And to see, to be privy to a practice or even a shoot around session, now I'm not saying this is something specific to this year's Sacramento Kings team, but if you're ever early enough to the arena and you can pay attention to shoot arounds, you'll notice before each player does their one-on-one with whatever coach, they sit down on the bench and they watch film together, dissect something or look at what they're trying to do. They go and work on it. And then they typically end with, again, looking at the film together and then go back, and that's their pregame workout. And then they get ready to suit up and actually play a game like that. There's teaching happening consistently and actively. And I think sometimes you need that. I mean, there's a reason why we take tests in school, right? You need that test of an actual in-game setting, and you need maybe a few of those to get your legs underneath them. So maybe Mike was consistent with it. He said, I don't think we're far off. I think we're doing the right things. We're 0-4, but we're 0-4 in 4 very winnable games, with the exception of giving up 1,000 points to the Warriors and Golden State. So it's
which they were still sort of in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel good about that comeback at all, to be honest with you. But at the same time, it's like we said, they didn't fold, and teams in the past would have folded. That 50-point second quarter, don't even bother coming out in the third quarter. It would have been over at that point.
I didn't love it either. Kenny swayed me a little bit on it. In the moment, I didn't like it, but doing the show the next day, I was like, oh, okay. I get why there might be a little bit more to this comeback than I was giving it credit for yesterday.
That was a big deal for Chimezie Metu. That was Chimezie Metu's game, and since then he's found a rotational spot.
Yeah,
and I think Chimezie's playing fantastic.
He's playing
really good,
really
and better than I expected. And now it also kind of hurt my Richaun Holmes loving heart, because I think Chimezie Metu has been doing everything that Richaun Holmes should be doing. It was fun to see Richaun get the ovation. That he got when he checked in at the end of the Nets game, and I think he rewarded
and played
that.
well.
And he hit a corner 3. I was like, hell yeah, show off that jumper.
Man, we love Richaun out here in Sacramento.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what it is. We love Richaun out here.
Yeah, that's not even up for debate.
But also, I'm sure Rashawn's not happy, but have you ever seen a moment of Rashawn actively pouting on the bench?
No.
He's up, he's cheering, he's getting involved. He's I've paid very close attention to it. Rashawn's a very likable guy. He's a very well-respected guy. He's an energy guy, and he still brings that energy to whatever role, even if it's off the bench too. So, and that also speaks to, I think, the kind of, we used to kind of roll our eyes at Vlade Divac wanted to build a locker room of good guys. And I get it's more fun to have a team of likable people that get along together, but ultimately you're trying to win basketball games. Sometimes you need an a-hole or an enforcer in there to get that done. But Rashawn is a likable guy that I think builds chemistry, and he's also the Kings have also added a guy like Matthew Dellavedova, who stays ready, but also is actively coaching and up and having fun on that bench too. So that's a big deal to me.
Rashawn, thinking about that, Rashawn made a 3. I think he got an alley-oop 2 or something like that, and made a 3 in that game on Tuesday. And like you mentioned, he's not happy about what's going on. He wants to be out there, whatever the case may be. But he hits the 3, and then he kind of goes to the crowd, gives a little 3 sign up there, and good spirits, things of that nature, never pouted. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys were outside, Matt. I don't think you were outside. Damien, you might have been outside.
Is it cold out there?
Remember when remember Derek Martin,
Mhm.
when Rick Adelman wouldn't play him and he
Mhm.
got into the game and he hit like 3 threes and he hit the 3 and he turned around and stared a dagger at Rick Adelman after every shot. That was bad.
Why don't I
vibes.
remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That was bad vibes. And
Yeah.
that's not what
Yeah.
Rashawn did. I say out to say
Yeah.
that's not what Rashawn did. Like he
Yeah.
could have.
He wasn't trying to show up Mike
No,
Brown.
he got in there. He played his time.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard. I understand it, but that's just a testament to Mike Brown, a testament to Rashawn Holmes, a testament to this team where, hey, the most important thing is winning right now. And whatever anybody needs to do to contribute, they're all down for it right now.
Well, and as far as I know, too, from just conversations that I've had in my own personal perspective, like Rashawn and Mike have a very good relationship. Like they kind of that relationship began and flourished pretty quickly when Mike was hired. Rashawn was at Mike's introductory press conference. You see them communicating all the time in Kings practices. Cameras caught them a few times as well. Like I don't know how they know each other personally, what their relationship is like personally. Never talked to them in a like a 3-man setting or anything like that. But all signs point to there is a respect factor there. So if a coach is telling you something you don't want to hear, which is you're out of the rotation for now, I'm sure it's not easy to accept. But when it's from a coach that you respect, who knows that you have value and is going to work to try and find out how to use that value for the better of the team and the better for you ultimately, I think it's easier to accept. And I think that's kind of where I brought up Matthew Dellavedova too. Like with both of them, I think Delly especially knows, okay, I'm not going to play too much on this team, but I'm playing for a coach that was with me when I first came into the league, and he knows what I'm capable of doing. And I've already shown him in this handful of minutes that I've gotten what I'm capable of doing. I trust him to know how to use me, and I'll stay ready for that. And I think Rashawn should have the same approach. And if he continues to give spot minutes like he did against Brooklyn, then he is providing that same approach, and that's valuable.